Just like to inform you that publicity of the meeting will also be provided on the satellite TV channel of the Chamber of Deputies, and since we have COVID conditions, you can also take part remotely. According to our program, we have, as part of the survey held by the Chamber of Deputies and the Senate committees, a hearing of Guy Verhofstadt as co-executive president co-president of the Executive Committee of the European Parliament at the Conference on the Future of Europe. On behalf of President Battelli and colleagues of the Foreign Affairs and EU Policy Committees of Chamber and Deputies, I wish to thank Mr. Verhofstadt. I'd like to remind you that on the 9th of May, on the Europe Day Conference on the Future of Europe began its proceedings in Strasbourg at the premises of the European Parliament, an inaugural meeting which was attended by the President of the French Republic, Macron, the President of the European Parliament, and the President of the Commission and the President of the EU Council for Portugal. It was stressed that it's important this should not simply be a mental exercise, but also use indications from the European citizens, taking a balance between the expectations of the citizens of Europe and the organization of the European Union. Mr. Verhofstadt pointed to the possibility that the conference could lead to a much more advanced European citizenship in the area of integration. I also wish to point out that the Executive Committee of the conference is made up of representatives of the European Parliament, Council, Commission, and as observers the Troika of COSAC. As observers, we also have representatives of the social parties, including Luca Visentini, Italian, who's Secretary General of the ETUC. The Executive Committee approved the regulation of the conference, which foresees that the plenary assembly will be headed by the three co-presidents of the committee and will have 433 participants, of which 108 will be members of the European Parliament and 108 representatives of national parliaments, 4 members per parliament, 2 per house in countries which have 2 houses. So in our case, there'll be 2 from the Senate and 2 from the Chamber of Deputies. When issues relating to the international role of the European Union are discussed, the High Representative will also be attending. I'd like to point out that today the European Parliament should indicate the names in its delegation: 28 PPE, 23 Socialists and Democrats, 15 Union Europe, 11 for Freedom and Democracy for the Green, 9 for Conservatives and Reform, is 6 for the Left, and 5 for those not in any list. And the Italian Parliament will make its decision based on these results. Finally, recalling what was in the common declaration, which gives the Executive Committee the competence to draw conclusions from each session according to the regulation. Final report of the conference will be held in under its authority, but in full cooperation and discussion with the plenary assembly, in order to promote the full involvement as possible of the 433 members of the assembly. Having said this, thanking President Verhofstadt of his availability, aware of his very high level European background, I give him the floor. You have the floor.
Grazie mille. Grazie mille, Presidente. I have to tell you, I will continue in English if this is not a problem. I speak a little bit of Italian, but maybe not enough to be not fluent enough for maybe this for this meeting. So I will continue in English, and I want first of all to thank you personally, Mr. Fassino, for organizing this meeting with the committees in the Senate and in the Camera dei Deputati of the Republic of Italy. So I'm very pleased with this meeting to explain to you, first of all, what the purposes of this conference, explain also what we have done in the meanwhile, and how we will proceed in the coming months, in the coming year, because this conference needs to produce conclusions, a report on a vision on the future of the European Union, and we have to do that within 1 year. And this conference is a novelty in two ways. The first, in the who is organizing it. You know, you, Mr. Fassino, you know certainly better than I do. We got already exercises like that in the past. The convention, for example, was an exercise in the past. But the big difference is that in the past, the convention, for example, was an initiative of the European Council. And they invited other people, national parliaments, European Parliament, to their exercise. This time, it's not an exercise of one institution. It's not an exercise of the Commission. It's not an exercise of the Council. It's an exercise of the three institutions together. So Parliament, Commission, and Council. That's already a novelty because that never happened in the past. And the second novelty is that we want to do it bottom up. So it's not a few hundreds of politicians coming together at the European level. No, we want to do it bottom up. First of all, giving the floor, giving the opportunity to the citizens to express what they think needs to be the European Union of the future. And we will do that in two ways. First of all, by launching what has been done in the meanwhile of a so-called interconnected digital multilingual platform. Every European citizen can take an account on that platform. It's a little bit, maybe it's a bad comparison, but that platform that we have launched is a little bit the Facebook of the conference, where people can get information, where people can debate, where people can organize activities, and that will produce in the coming months a number of recommendations and conclusions based on the individual recommendations, requests, opinions of citizens participating in the platform. That's one way. The second way is an involvement by citizens by organizing 4 big citizens panels. Citizens panels of 200 people each, chosen randomly, with a huge participation of young people between 16 and 25. And these citizens panels will meet each 3 times in different places. Also, one of the citizens panels in Italy, naturally, in Firenze. That would be impossible not to have at least one citizen panel in Italy, in Firenze, in cooperation with the European University Institute. And these citizens panels, together with the digital platform, will discuss and will produce recommendations, opinions, proposals by the citizens towards the conference. And then starts, once that has been done, in the second part of the year, and in January of next year, starts a second important stage of the conference, where the plenary of the conference will together will listen to these, the representatives of the citizens panels, will take stock of the recommendations, of the wishes, of the proposals of the citizens panels, and will formulate proposals, reforms that respond to the wishes and recommendations by the citizens' panels. So it's a bottom-up exercise where finally the plenary of the conference will, we hope, produce a vision for the future of the European Union and will, in fact, propose a number of reforms that are direct answers to the requests, the proposals, the visions, and the ideas that have been proposed by these citizens' panels and by the individual citizens during the activity of the platform. This plenary in total will be the core, I should say, of the conference. It will be more, as you have already indicated, more than 400 people, with a representation of not only citizens naturally, but European Parliament, national parliaments, European Commission and European Council. What is important is that decisions of this plenary, will need to decide on a list of proposals that respond to the wishes of the citizens' panels. And this list of proposals will be adopted. For an adoption of a proposal, there needs to be a consent of what we call the 4 constitutive pillars of the conference. That means Council, Commission, European Parliament, and also the national parliament in the format of the COSAC. So there cannot a decision be taken without the involvement of the national parliaments, like there cannot be a proposal being adopted without the involvement of the European Parliament, the European Commission, and the European Council. And that will be a very difficult exercise because there are different opinions naturally inside the European Union. But on the other hand, the reason why we want to do it in that way is also to have an outcome of the conference that has sufficient, I should say, support and backing in the European Union. If the European Commission, the European Council, the European Parliament, and at the same time, the national parliaments are in favor of a reform in that conference, it will be very difficult later on for whatever leadership in the European Union to ignore it, to say that it doesn't exist, that it just has the consent, the support of a broad majority in the European Union, because it will be a proposal based on a recommendation of the citizens and translated into a policy proposal by the 4 important pillars in the European Union: Commission, Council and Parliament, plus the representation of all national parliaments. So that's the way the conference will work and hopefully will produce a good outcome. Now, why this conference now? Why, you know, it's already a long discussion inside the European Union to launch this conference. Already in the previous parliament, there were proposals and reports to go to do that. But I think that this time it's really that we are on a crossroad. We have witnessed in the European Union a number of crises who have made it absolutely clear that a reform of the European Union is needed. We have witnessed the financial crisis with a very slow, inactive European Union, not reacting, in fact, to the financial crisis. Certainly not in the way that the Americans did. The Americans had a fast, speedy, effective reaction to the financial crisis. A huge package of investments. The European Union, for 10 years, we have discussed the fallout of the financial crisis, not reacted to the financial crisis. We got a migration crisis, and Italy knows it better than any other member states of the Union. We're still continuing, and is not solved, where the European Union is not capable really to respond. We have Brexit, a big member state that has left the European Union. It's very difficult to say that, it goes very well with the European Union. A big member state like the UK has left the Union. No, it's a sign of a failure of the Union that a big member state as the UK has left. There is the COVID, the health crisis. Before the health crisis, people said, no, the European Union has not to interfere in health issues. Today, everybody is saying after the pandemic, yeah, we need a health union in the European Union. We need, in fact, more competences for the union, certainly in the field of health. And there is finally the ongoing geopolitical crisis. I will not be too harsh for the European Union, but let's be honest, if a European Union is not capable to say something about the killing of the democracy in Hong Kong because of the unanimity ruling in the Union, if the Union is not capable to say something about any other big international tragedy, like, for example, the new violence in Gaza, in the sorry, you know that rumor. Naturally, it's the plenary was starting in the European Parliament. So my apologies. But if a union is not capable to react and to have an opinion about a conflict like the conflict between Palestine and Israel, well, then the conclusion is that we need to do something about it, and that we cannot continue like that with a unanimity rule in foreign affairs as we have today, where one member state, for I don't know what reasons, can block whatever opinion of the union. So I think really, if you look to the world of tomorrow, that will be dominated certainly by the US and by China, and with some ambitions for other big powers, it's the right moment to ask ourselves, is this union fit for purpose for the coming decades? My answer is no, it's not fit for purpose. And we need, the fastest as possible, to do a number of reforms if we want to defend the interests of our citizens and our member states in a world dominated by these superpowers. It's not that Europe has to become a superpower, but I'm always giving the example of defense and military. If you look to everything what we spent on military in Europe, we spent 4 times more than the Russians. We spent the same amount as the Chinese on military, but we are not capable to do to compete with them. Certainly not without the help of our American friends. So I think our weakness in the digital world, where none of the big stock market companies on the stock market, digital companies on the stock market, are European. The fact that tomorrow standards will be elaborated on artificial intelligence, on the 6G, I'm not talking about 5G, I'm already talking about 6G. This Europe is not fit for purpose. And the question that the conference has to answer based on the proposals and the recommendations of the citizens is what to do about it. Will we continue this, or is the time not there to do a number of in-depth reforms that maybe were not possible during the previous convention, but are certainly needed in the coming decades to come. So, President Fassino, thank you very much to give me the opportunity to have this meeting with you, and I look very much forward to the discussion. And no problem, I understand everything in Italian, so it's not necessary to translate everything. For me, the Italian language, I understand it, and again, my apologies that I have used some foreign European English language for the debate. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you, President, for having given us the basic indications for the conference and final indications. I also believe that Europe is faced by the need to open a new period in European integration. Personally, I use one wording that the third phase in the European integration after the Europe of Fathers, the Europe of Maastricht, we need a third phase of integration, and the conference for the future will be useful if it can give us indications to open this third phase. Having said this, let us begin our discussion. I already have a number of people who've asked for the floor, so I'd like you all to be concise so that we can give Mr. Verhofstadt possibility of answering. Senator Stefano is the first on our list. He's president of the Committee for the European Union of the Italian Senate. Thank you, President. Thank you to our guest at the hearing for his willingness to be with us. I'd like to ask him, thank him for the support given to national parliaments and the Executive Committee, the fact that an agreement has been reached on the equal representation of the European Parliament and national parliaments as objectively, and national recognition, which we worked hard on in past weeks, and where we managed to succeed thanks to the mediation of the European Parliament. And 108 national members of Parliament will allow the plenary to host a debate which I am sure I agree with what was said just now by Mr. Verhofstadt, the fact that we need to commit ourselves to avoid that this conference just turns into a empty ritual, and we have really to think of a new future for Europe, which has new challenges facing it. The pandemic has shown us that in the health area too, we all feel the need for common health policy. And I believe that the conduct with regard to vaccination plans and the provision of vaccines was intelligent exercise which we should repeat. But I also agree with the colleague that the European Union should undertake a financial reform, not just monetary, looking to a common fiscal policy which the next generation has introduced, but which we should not see as a one-off operation, but as a policy for the future. The same thing goes to migration, defense, and an international policy to strengthen the role of Europe in the conflicts which still endure. So I'm very glad of what I've heard, and they encouraged me to say that this is an appointment we cannot miss. And I'm saying this to say that I hope that a phase will open where the three institutions which drive the European Union can increasingly be interconnected gears with greater attention to the results which Europe achieves globally as a union. So we feel ready to take up this challenge, and we hope that on that occasion national parliaments will truly be able to convey the feelings of European citizens who finally today have gone back to asking for more Europe, apart from some ideological areas, which is more, I think, for electoral purposes. I think that Europeanist system mindset has truly been re-established. Thank you, Mr. Stefano. And I would like to remind you all again to be concise. Mr. Colleague Petrin from Forza Italia. Yes, thank you. I'll be very brief. I greet President Fassino, President Batelli, and in particular President Verhofstadt for being with me. President Verhofstadt, it's a rather important task. We're setting ourselves a basis on which we all agree, I think, is more Europe, as President Stefano was saying. But there are also a series of considerations, some certainties. The European Union, as it is today, has no place between the United States and China on the other side, and maybe between Russia on the one hand and Turkey on the other. In a press release, in an interview given to a Vienna newspaper, President Fico said the fact that Turkey is gaining power in Libya is not so much a sign of Turkish power, but of European weakness. President Verhofstadt, we're not where we need to be today. Why couldn't the European Union become a superpower? Why is it that we spend adding the defense investments of all of our countries, which is much more than other areas? We can't coordinate our policies. Why can't we have a foreign policy? Why do we not listen to the cries of pain from the Western Balkans, and we leave the Western Balkans open to action from Russia, Turkey and China, with China which is buying the Montenegro physically, and I expect to find a huge Chinese fleet in the Gulf of Qatar. I think we certainly need a reform of the European Union. We're old. Mr. Verhofstadt, what's the point of a 6-monthly rotating presidency of a EU country when 6 months is a nonsensical period of time, because it doesn't even make it possible for a job to be begun? And in order for this to work, it should definitely be longer in order to allow something to be done. But most of all, Mr. President, what is the point that in 2021 the European Parliament doesn't have the strength of legislative initiative? So certainly changes have to be made. We have to move away from the criterion of unanimity. We certainly need to be members of a single state, and we can no longer be a patchwork of 27 minor states, and we can't accept some of these not accepting the rule of law. I'm looking forward to a lot from this conference. 1 year is quite a long time, but when you said a conference that will last years, I got the shivers, because if it's to last years instead of 1 year, that also would be of no use. So I wish you a very good job, because we have a long, long way to go, Mr. President. Senator Bonino. Good afternoon. Thank you, President Fassino. Thank you to Guy Verhofstadt too. My question is a very simple one. From what you've told us, and which I have agreed with for a long time, in order to make Europe, etc., 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 we need a change in the treaties, and we need to go beyond unanimous voting. That is unavoidable. The first steps and the first hearings we heard with Ambassador Esteri, for example, and with the Commissioner too, were not very encouraging. In any case, my question is the following. This assembly and all these consultations in the end should adopt a resolution or a recommendation. What's the voting system going to be for this approval? Is it going to require a unanimous vote, or simple majority, or a strengthened majority? Because I don't expect everybody will be in agreement. So the voting system at the end of this year, where we run the risk of fostering lots of illusions, at the end of all this, the final document will be voted how? Will that be on a unanimous basis too? And I wish you very successful work. You need a lot of luck, and so do we. Thank you, Emma. Colleague Rossini, Vice President of the Senate's European Affairs Committee. Thank you. Mr. Verhofstadt, I wanted to put you two questions, very specific ones. One is on the goals of the conference. The conference was launched on the 9th of May, 9 days exactly after the deadline for the presentation of national plans from 27 countries, national recovery plans, which essentially will redraw Europe in the recovery plans, which all 27 countries have adopted and drafted. We already have the Europe of the future. We have already chosen it. We've already chosen the direction of our economy and ecological transition, digitization. We've already chosen an inclusive Europe. What would happen if it were to emerge that European citizens don't want digitalization? They want to go back to a different kind of Europe after the pandemic. So the Conference on the Future of Europe, is it looking for an endorsement of the policy decisions we've already made, or is it a place of the narration of these choices, not all of which have come to fruition, even though most national plans were developed with lots of involvement to our citizens through national parliaments, with lots of hearings. We've listened to local communities. So here I come to my second question. The first one was we need to find a narrative for our national recovery plans, because that's where the future of our states lie from an economic, social and educational standpoint. These are high-level policy decisions we've already made. And I'm a bit worried about representation when I hear that bottom-up means citizens not mediated by parliaments, because we know we had to battle to obtain the representation of national European parliaments in the plenary. We really had a battle on our hands, so it's important to say this. There's a crazy of bodies of representation in Europe. We have the risk of sliding from democracy to demagoguery, so it's important for us not to empty of significance the places of representation. We members of parliament are in contact with citizens, so this, I feel, is very important. We shouldn't have double tracks with citizens panels on one and members of parliament, but we need to move away from being places of ritual. So a question which may seem to be technical, I'd like to understand what algorithms are going to be used to choose citizens panels, because I know that it's an algorithm which has already been used, but I find this interesting. All right, colleague Orsini, and now Senator Craxi. Thank you, President. Mr. Verhofstadt, you have great political and institutional experience, which is spread over a period of time which allows you to assess Europe before and after Maastricht. And last year, in 2020, you stated that the COVID virus emergency has marked a failure on the part of Europe. For various reasons, I've also reached the same conclusion. How do you think Europe has changed in this last year, if you think it has? My first question, I think that the main reason for what we've seen in recent decades, together with the effects of the economic crisis, which was badly governed, and the United States made Europe shouldered a lot of this, and one of the basic reasons is the lack of full democracy in European institutions. And there should be a debate, democracy with rigorists and countries who want austerity and who want now rigid accounting systems and oversight of states to avoid inflation breaking out, also caused by the ECB monetary policies. This is something which has been launched recently by former Minister Schulberg, which was reported on in Italy by an interview in Sole 24 Ore, which I find very dangerous and destructive as a position, and also runs breaking the trust, the confidence of markets. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Craxi. And now, colleague Milizia. Thank you, Mr. Fassino. Thank you, Mr. Battelli. I'd like to really express my thanks for this fact-finding survey, which should not just be an exercise, but should be an opportunity for change. As our speaker, Mr. Verhofstadt, said, Europe has demonstrated all its fragilities, and the crisis linked to the pandemic has further highlighted the fragilities in this system. Many of my colleagues have already highlighted many problems, going from the lack of legislative initiative on the part of the Parliament and the impossibility of electing the President of the Commission directly. But I'd like to put a first question to you. According to you, with regard to this conference, which seems to be becoming a taboo, will any results be obtained if we refuse to speak of reforming the treaties? If many states will object to amendments in this area, would it be possible to achieve anything else? You raised a very delicate issue such as migration here too. One important issue among those discussed in the conference is the role of Europeans in the world. In the Mediterranean, we're seeing a very unstable situation. Will the European Union be a main actor in this area, or will we remain observers? And I'm referring in particular not just to issues linked to the Middle East, but also to all the migration which we will see from the northern shore of Africa. I'm thinking of Tunisia, which is going to be a major migratory country, and migration might grow because of the pandemic, where all the tourism is blocked. Will the European Union take a practical position on this, because the new pact on migration shows a number of points of weakness? And if we really want to reach conclusions in this conference on the future of Europe, which would be wonderful, as our colleague Catherine said, it'd be good for a final date to be set for its operation so that we can have definitive results. Will it be possible to have a result which is accepted by all states, and how? And when we speak of European federalism, will this be a project that can be brought in this third phase of European integration? Thank you. Our colleague Ungaro. Thank you, President. I also wanted to express my best wishes to Mr. Verhofstadt and express my hopes that he will be successful. I also want to express my thanks for the decision to include national representatives. We'll be doing all we can to support this work, particularly after 8 years from the Ventotene Manifesto. Now, I can only spend 1 minute on the direction of our union. I think we're in midstream. The process of integration can only proceed. Where we stand today, we run the risk of falling back, thinking of a single currency without a common budget and the full convertibility of our currencies, without a insurance on deposits, without a banking union. So let's forget about the Eurosceptics who lost the union, but if we think of the Euro-timids, of which there are many, slowing down the process of integration in our union runs the risk of triggering a process of disintegration of the union. So we need a major process of reform and accelerating, in particular, integration, where there should, in my opinion, be the abolition of the principle of unanimity and the right of veto, particularly fiscal areas, and the construction of a true social Europe, and making the recovery fund permanent. And I would also think of a direct election of the President of the European Commission, and going beyond Article 7 to respect the fundamental values of our Union in all member states. I'd just like to ask you what are the real prospects for the conference to come up with proposals which can truly be taken up by the committees of the European Parliament to make the changes which we feel to be essential. Thank you. Colleague Bianchi. Thank you, President. Thank you to Mr. Verhofstadt. This opportunity extended to us with the Conference on the Future of Europe is certainly a very important one, which must not be squandered. But we need to grasp the opportunity of trying together to build a new Europe in a post-pandemic scenery. As such, I think that the Conference on the Future of Europe should see itself as a kind of constituent assembly for the Europe of the future, so not just the involvement of parliaments and regional authorities, the Commission, Council, etc., but also a prospective vision about what we want to do for the future of the European Union. In line with this, we obviously cannot avoid discussing solid and major reforms for the institutional architecture of the European Union. I think there are three aspects which are essential. The first is involvement of regional and local authorities. We all know that in the Lisbon Treaty 2004, the principle of subsidiarity was enclosed, which has given further importance to the Committee of Regions, but local and regional authorities so far have not been made full parties in the decision-making process, which leads to various rules on the European level. The role of the European Parliament has already been said by one of the previous speakers, has to be changed. It has to be given the power of legislative initiative. And thirdly, if we want to involve citizens, we have to allow them to directly elect the President of the European Commission. These are three ambitious goals, and I understand that they will need to be renegotiated, and the treaties will need to be renegotiated. If we can't do that, we need to think where there is an opportunity, and within the framework of the current treaties, to try to move forward in the direction I've mentioned. So I'd like to know what your opinion is on these three major topics: local authorities, the role of the European Parliament, and direct election of the President of the Commission. I believe that the ambition linked to a new European citizenship and for better integration of Europe itself should be channeled through local territories, and so citizens and local inhabitants have to be a common denominator to look at the future of our union. And now, colleague Billy, this will be the final person to speak, and then we'll give the floor to Mr. Verhofstadt again. Thank you, President Fassino, Battelli, and Verhofstadt. This Conference on the Future of Europe is a good initiative. It's a platform. It's a kind of forum for discussion divided into topics. For the first time, the European Union wants to establish an area for shared debate. It's true that there have been various attempts in the past, but all very weak and which have never taken anybody to concrete results. So we need to have a discussion in order to make Europe fully democratic, representative and fairly federal. We need to fill the gaps in democracy, making use of new technologies as well. President, allow me to conclude by expressing a hope. I hope that this will be the beginning of a full and mature democracy on the European continent, capable of listening to the voices of all European peoples, bottom up, as you say quite rightly, Mr. Verhofstadt, in order to solve problems and to deal with our challenges in an effective way, so that we can open a true, concrete and factual debate with the European Union, so that all European peoples can take part in building a vision on the Europe of the future. Thank you. So I don't see any further requests for the floor, and therefore I shall restore the floor to Mr. Verhofstadt.
Deve attaccare il microfono. È perfetto.
Sì, grazie. Sì, grazie. I want to thank you all the colleagues for their intervention, and I want to try to respond, maybe not on every intervention, but maybe by putting a few of the remarks together. Maybe first on the way the conference will decide, and more precisely the plenary of the conference will decide. Important question, because national parliaments will be fully represented in that plenary. As President Fassino has indicated, there will be 4 representatives of the Italian Parliament, of the 2 chambers in the plenary. The way it will work is not with unanimity. It's on what we call consensual basis, but consensual basis between the 4 constitutive pillars of the conference. That means that's indicated in the rules of procedure, that when a majority of the EP of the European Commission, the European Council, and the national parliaments working probably on with the rules of the COSAC are in agreement, then there is a decision of the plenary. So it's not that we need 433 people saying yes on 433. We will not. The conference is not a Polish Landtag, as we say. You know, at a certain moment in the 18th century, Poland disappeared nearly because they had invented unanimity in their in the plenary of the Polish Parliament. So we will not do that. What we are looking for, and what is described in the rules of procedure, is there need to be a consent of the 4 pillars of the conference: European Parliament, Commission, Council, and national parliaments. And that means that in every of these pillars there need to be a majority to go into a direction in support of a proposal. I think that this is not an easy procedure, but it's a necessary procedure, because if you want to go forward really with a number of reforms in the Union, it will be necessary that national parliaments, European Parliament, European Council representing the member states, and Commission are in agreement. Not that there is unanimity in every of these pillars, but there is a consent of every of these pillars. That's the way it's going to work. It's a little bit the same system as we used in the convention. In the convention also, during the whole process of the convention, that was the way decisions have been taken, and it will be very similar as described in the rules that have been adopted. And that brings me to the second question: is treaty changes possible or not? Those who have read all the documents will see that we don't talk about it, and for good reasons. There were a number of people who wanted from the beginning to say in the rules that no treaty changes were possible. And we said, no, let's not start like that. This conference needs to discuss, debate, propose a number of reforms. And once these reforms are proposed, we have to ask ourselves the question, is this possible without changes of the treaty, yes or no? The treaty change is the question who comes afterwards, not before. So I don't want to, if we start with the discussion, treaty change, yes or no, we will be busy 1 year with that question without solving anything. I want to do the opposite exercise. And that's also what we agreed on. That is, we don't say treaty change or no treaty change, it is not mentioned. Let's do, first of all, the conference or exercise, formulate the proposals, and then ask ourselves, is this possible within the actual framework of the treaty? So that's the way we're going to work. And I'm pretty sure, I think that my bit is that if based on proposals of and opinions of the citizens, the 4 constitutive pillars of the conference are in favor of a reform, and that could be a change of the treaty, it will be very difficult to avoid it, to say no, 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 no. As it will be a proposal backed by the 3 institutions, and in top of that, by the representatives of the national parliaments. So it's for a good reason that we didn't put treaty changes in the text, but we didn't also not make it impossible, saying, yeah, there are no treaty changes possible. No? We don't say anything about it, just to make it maybe possible in the future when our conclusion is that without a change, things are impossible. My third point is exactly about that, institutional issues. The conference will talk about everything, about policies and institutional issues. What we didn't do is to say, oh, no, the conference can only talk about policies. Or others who are saying, no, the conference has only to talk about institutional issues. No, we will talk about both. The way we organize the work is, and that has been, that will be proposed to the first plenary. You know that the first plenary will be will have place in Strasbourg on the 19th of June, and there will be caucuses and delegation meetings on the 18th of June, so the day before. And what is important is that we will propose you to the plenary to work in different working groups based on the different boxes, 9 boxes that has been created on the so-called digital platform. And that contains, this boxes contains policies, health, for example, climate change, migration, but also institutional issues. The rule of law, the values in the European Union, European democracy, the whole question of is this European democracy needs this reform, yes or no? Personally, I think it needs reform. One of the colleagues, I think it was Mr. Bianchi, has said we need to elect the president of the European Commission. That is a proposal that will be discussed. We need to end SOFA-gate, maybe, yeah? That SOFA-gate is not repeating itself. We need maybe to reconsider that the question of Mr. Kiesinger, who said, yeah, I don't know who to phone when I have to phone to the Europeans, but it's still not solved, that problem, apparently. That's an institutional issue. The fact, and I agree with that proposal, to give a right of initiative to the European Parliament. The European Parliament is the only parliament, not the only parliament, but one of the only parliaments in the world who have not the right of initiative and who has no say about the income. I thought always that parliaments were created to limit the income, the requests of income and taxes by the king and by the prince. Well, apparently, the European Parliament has not that task. The income is not only expenditures, not the income of the Union. All these questions will be on the table. And we will not limit ourselves to policies alone. We will make the link between policies and the institutional issues. The one and the other are, in fact, going together. And it's completely crazy in the Union to continue the discussion. Yeah, we can only talk about policies, not about institutions. People are not interested in institutional issues, or the opposite. It's not true. Some policies are not possible because of institutional obstacles, and vice versa. That's the reality. So we need to tackle them together in the conference. And that's what we're going to do. And not to say it's only about intentions and policies and not about the way to finance them or to approve them. And so the unanimity rule will be on the table. Can we continue further with the unanimity rule? Certainly in foreign affairs, where we are never capable to react immediately to a crisis in our neighborhood because of the unanimity rule. And today, our impossibility to say something about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, or to say something about the end of democracy in Hong Kong is in fact, is a shame for the Union that we are not capable to do so. So we need to tackle that. We need to discuss that. And if the conference comes to the conclusion that that is the way forward, well, I want to see the leadership in the future in the Union who say, everybody has asked for that, the citizens has asked for that, Parliament has asked for that, National Parliament has asked for that, the Council is in agreement, even the Commission, but no, we will not do that. So the purpose of this conference is to create, with the citizens' involvement and with the participation of the national parliaments, a sort of a flywheel for reform. I don't know how many adepts there are of engines in your committee, but the flywheel, that's the wheel that keeps turning, and make progress possible instead of the status quo in which we live. I agree, and that's my next point, with those who have said, we made already a big step with the recovery plan. That's true. It's for the first time that in a crisis, the European Union was capable to launch a 750 billion euro fund based on new own resources and based on bonds that will be put in the market, with a lot of success, by the way. And I think that is crucial also for the future. But the question will not be, is the recovery fund good or not? The question will be, will we continue with that in the future? Will we create a capacity for the Union to do so every 5 years? That will be the question. Or is this for once that we did it? Because there was the pandemic and afterwards it's over. Or do we create really an investment capacity on the European level? That, let's be honest, that is 750 billion. That's it's not what the Americans are investing. The Americans do a far bigger. But okay, let's not be too critical. It's for the first time that with an issue of bonds based on own resources, we create a European capacity. What was not done after the financial crisis. But will this be a permanent system? Yes or no? That will be a question in the conference that we need to answer. And a link to that, naturally, the fiscal union, because if you make it a permanent system, then automatically you fall into a fiscal union. And then finally, because we are here together as colleagues, as parliamentarians, the whole structure of the conference is to have a huge input of participative democracy, direct democracy, and the final responsibility of representative democracy. That is what we try to do, to make the ideal, I cannot say marriage, between the direct input of citizens on the one hand, with the responsibility of those who are elected by the citizens, and that are the parliaments. So I have maybe not responded to every issue, President Fascino, but I have tried to give a number of indications, and I have given a lot of my own personal opinions about it. But yeah, I'm only the co-chair representing the European Parliament, so I have not lost my voice in any way by becoming chair of this conference.
Bene, grazie.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Verhofstadt. Obviously, what you said is something we will take into account. For example, it's certainly true that one cannot separate institutional matters from policies, because one requires the other, and we see this clearly in the common foreign and security policy. We can't have a common security and foreign policy because, as you reminded us, the mechanism of unanimity stops this from happening. And I also think it's reasonable not to start discussing whether we're going to change the treaties, because the discussion will just concentrate on that. I think if the decision starts out in this way, it will be easier for the outcome to be that the treaties won't be amended. Whereas if we identify some themes and some topics, some solutions which require treaties to be changed, that would be easier to change, I think. And I don't want to take up time with other considerations, but you made a number of valued points. As you can see, we're working as a national parliament on the conference. We began this fact-finding survey with a number of hearings. We'll also be listening to President Sassoli and other members of the board and the representatives of the political forces in Parliament and social forces, because we truly want to contribute, together with the initiatives that was agreed with Mr. Mendel and the government, foreign ministry, and the government, that this can truly be something felt as a live issue in Italy, because, as I said, it's not just a conference which is interinstitutional. This conference is promoting a bottom-up process with the aim of involving citizens and public opinion. So it's very important that in each country, and this is certainly the spirit in Italy, we can have involvement of the citizens, and that we can find useful indications from the contribution of citizens. Thank you indeed for this opportunity. Thank you again for your willingness to be with us, and we hope we'll be able to meet soon physically. And I hope we can come to the Italian Parliament directly. We're ready to host you whenever you want, and I can send you an official invitation immediately. As soon as COVID-19 allows us, and your agenda allows you, we are ready to host you. Thank you. Thank you, and I wish you a good day.